Hi, and welcome everyone to today's Fairy God Boss live webinar. We're really excited to have everyone join all of us, and we're going to give folks just a few seconds to get connected. While we're waiting, which I know is already in the chat, we'd love to know where everyone's tuning in from today. So you'll see on the right side of your screen a chat box. And so if you're comfortable doing so, join some of your fellow webinar attendees and send us a message saying where you're joining from. And we have folks, a few I saw at the beginning from California, which is where I'm coming from, Orange County, California, in the southern part of California. And so I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Allison Bassioni. I'm an Executive Vice President of Customer Success and Delivery at Alight Solutions, and really excited to be here to be part of the webinar today. Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. First, the session will be recorded and shared via email with all of the registrants for the session. And during the discussion, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to start with some prepared questions, but we'll use the stage chat on the right side of your screen to send messages, add comments, and ask questions to the panelists and to one another. For those of you who may not know, Fairy God Boss is the largest online career community for women. Millions of women visit this site for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how companies treat women, and virtual events like this. So now I'm excited to kick off today's event, Top Tips for the Future Female Leaders of Tech, and it's sponsored by our organization, Alight Solutions. I'm thrilled to be joined by two of my colleagues and favorite humans, Kelly Evanson and Fola Adebanjo. And so I'd love for them each to take a minute to introduce themselves, share a little bit about what's going on in your life personally, professionally, and what you do in your role today at Alight Solutions. Kelly, we'll start with you.
Great. Thank you so much. I am Kelly Evanson. I'm a Vice President for Technology and Strategic Delivery. And basically what that means is I do a lot of special projects for our executive leadership team, such as technology due diligence for mergers, acquisitions, divestitures. When we had the COVID pandemic, I helped with planning and strategizing how to send people home to be productive. So some of those types of things. I do crisis management as well. If there's, knock on wood, a cyber event or something that we need to have some communication to clients or colleagues. Personally, I have been married for 25 years to the best person I know, and we have a 23-year-old daughter. She's amazing as well, and I'm a horseback rider. So with that, Fola, would love to hear from you.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. I'm Fola Adebanjo. I'm a VP in our customer success organization, responsible for health and wealth solutions. And within that job, while I have oversight over our execution from a technology and an operations standpoint, my main responsibility is helping our clients get value out of the solutions that they purchase from Alight. Personally, I am married 23 years, I think. I am a mom to twin, almost 21-year-old boys. And I'd say my life is evolving as they are moving into senior year, and I can see them leaving home soon. So yeah, I am in empty nest preparation mode. Oh, well, maybe reality setting empty nest mode. It's been happening.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Fola. All right, for our first question, for female leaders at Alight, what key challenges have you faced in the tech industry, and how did you overcome them? And are there specific resources or networks within the organization that have been instrumental in your success? Kelly, we'll start with you.
Great. I think the biggest challenge for me is technology is really vast, and it's hard to choose at times whether to specialize in an area such as infrastructure or application development or cybersecurity, or to have a broader view. And when you think about training and the pace of technology, I think the best teacher is really the ubiquitousness of technology in our everyday life. Everybody has a little computer in their pocket. It gets push notifications from various applications. It'll have an operating system update. Those are things we just sort of take for granted in our personal lives. But in the professional world, safeguarding against bad actors or ransomware or convenience, has to be in check with that user experience, whether that's a website user as an end user customer, or internally as people are trying to communicate and work through some of the new technology like ChatGPT or other things. So I would say the challenge that I've had is kind of picking my battles between going deep or going wide. And it ebbs and flows. So I would recommend follow curiosity, follow what's happening in sort of the real world, and be open to and imaginative of how things in the real world can apply to your industry. After all, technology exists to promote business processes. It's not that interesting on its own. Don't tell my fellow geeks that. But the world around us is moving at such a pace that business needs to keep up with what people's personal expectations are.
Thanks, Kelly. Fola, how about you?
So I'll answer this more from a personal standpoint, since Kelly went all tech. Well, that's why we're here. So it's a good answer. So I'd say work-life balance is probably a big one, and I think that's one that would apply regardless of the space that we work in. I said, a mother of twins, and trying to find the balance between caring for them and doing work. And I'd say what helped me the most was seeing other women at Alight be successful doing both, asking for what they needed, and not being afraid to figure out what you need to do to create some level of balance. And balance is subjective. I think that was one of the biggest learnings for me. Balance for me is not balance for you, but figuring out what that right thing was, and because I had strong people around me able to work that balance and ask for what they wanted, gave me permission almost to do the same for myself. And so I'd say one of the resources that we have here at Alight is, we just have a lot of strong women. We have a lot of great organizations. We have colleague-led communities, etc. Allison, who's our moderator here, has created and runs a super amazing group that supports senior women and people on the upward track, women on the upward track within Alight. And being a part of that organization allowed me to grow my network with women. And so I'm able to leverage examples. I know who to talk to if I'm struggling. So just being able to have, that at my disposal has helped me work through balance, like any challenges that I've had in that space. And I'd say even from a technical standpoint, if there's something I don't know, some of my resources, you can Google, you can learn to self-study, etc. But having someone who's a peer that you can tap into and go ask a question has been super helpful for me.
That's great, Fola. And so kind of on that theme of successful women that have shown you work-life balance and some of the tools, is there a specific, success story that stands out? And what were some of the defining moments or experiences that contributed to somebody's growth?
So I actually would say both of you. I'd say, Allison, from what I know of your career, you had the opportunity, or given an opportunity that maybe wasn't exactly an upward path or a lateral move, and actually required you to move your family to a different location. And the fact that you took that risk and had the courage to make that change, and we're not worried about ego, but more about broadening your experiences, that actually sets you up on a path to be where you are today. And so I think the courage that you showed, that is a strong motivator for me. And Kelly, my understanding is you are an English major, something in that vein. And you were able to figure out how to work your way into the tech space, whether that's by learning, using resources, taking risks, etc., and to navigate and get to where you are. So I think the biggest, I'd say, a point for me, for both of you, is that you're risk takers. You're not afraid to do things that were different, and did not let ego drive your decisions along the way. And that breadth of experience has served you both really well.
Well, thanks, Paula. I wasn't expecting that answer, so
Me neither.
appreciate
That was so kind.
it. Kelly, what would you add?
Gosh, I'm a little tongue-tied after that. Such nice compliment. But I'm going to riff on what I'd said earlier about sort of technology being ubiquitous in your life, work-life balance, and then also sort of that that courage. You were exactly right, and I'm surprised that you remembered. I was a creative writing major in school. And before there were such things as computer science majors, IBM would hire math, music, and English majors, primarily because code is bits and bytes. It does what you tell it to do. Despite the fear that's out there with artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's still a computer program. So it's very logical. And music needs to also be very logical. But sort of thinking back on the work-life balance and the first really revolutionary female manager that I had, she was responsible for creating and launching our website. So that was some time ago, but as an impressionable young person with a small child, she gave me these words that we all work a 24/7 job. And I've been faced a lot of times with people saying, oh my gosh, how can you be in technology? You're on call all the time. Right. I'm on a call all the time. So if I need to pick up my daughter or I'm going to go ride my horse or things like that, it's really weaving all those things together. And that's how I achieve work-life balance. But I think it's really important for women, not just in technology, but in any leadership, to encourage that risk taking. Many of us want to follow the rules. I work 9 to 5. I take a half-hour lunch break. Somebody's watching me and they're going to find out if I do something different. But nobody's keeping score against themselves if they have to work a late evening or a weekend. So I would say in closing, everybody give yourself a break and work on the output, not on the following the rules or the hours or the things like that, because taking a risk for what makes sense for you is really going to be best for whomever your employer is.
Thanks, Kelly. So I think great advice that you guys have given so far in the first couple of questions of kind of challenging yourself between going deep and wide and having a point of view on where that will take you in your career. When it comes to work-life balance, ask for what you need. Balance is subjective, and grow your network because those things will help you. And then both of you really focused on taking risks and having courage, and that really benefiting women in their career. So I think some really great advice. I will make a plug real quick. If you've got questions for Fuller or Kelly, please pop that into the comments and chat, and we'll get to audience questions in a minute. But with that, that's a lot about advice. What skills do you think professionals need to succeed in the changing tech landscape, and what career path opportunities exist in the tech industry? And Kelly, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah. I actually have an article in LinkedIn. It's a little dated, but I think it's still true. I think that oftentimes women stack the deck against themselves because I'm not technical or I haven't had that experience. But what I've learned in technology, whether it's debugging or working through incident management, is diversity of thought and thinking what if and what must be true. It's that critical thinking that applies across what I would call the United Nations of technology. And in terms of career pathing, this is a little bit of a harken back to the deep and wide. I think it's important to get a discipline under your belt where you feel confident. And when I say discipline, the archetypes within technology is infrastructure, security, application development, end user compute, and engineering. And why I would say that is because so many of the deep skill sets that you'll learn in any of those 5 disciplines will apply across the board. As technology progresses, infrastructure used to be boxes and wires sitting in a warehouse somewhere. Well, now infrastructure as a service, it's code. In the cloud, you're configuring hardware, but it's really more like software. So I would say in terms of career path, pick a discipline, something that you're passionate about. And even if it seems maybe benign at the time. So I did a a speed dating round at a high school several years ago, and they're like, workplace, that sounds kind of boring. Computers and installing software. I'm like, right, but you learn a ton about end user experience and diversity of thought around how people use things. So I'm gonna stop there and turn it over to Thola for any suggestions she might have on specific skill sets.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of tech skills, and then there has to be an element of creativity, adaptability, communication skills to round you out. So, I like Kelly, you hit on all the big things. So whether it's cybersecurity or AI, etc., like those are the most marketable skills I would say right now. But I think if you don't have the combination of those softer skills and the tech skills, like it makes it hard to break in. So those are important. The other thing I would say from an opportunity perspective is like, don't limit yourself to big tech. There lots of opportunities in healthcare, in finance, in retail, etc. So I would broaden your horizon and not feel like you have to go to like one of the big tech companies looking for a job, because everyone's working, talking, using AI. Everyone's trying to do machine learning. Everyone's got a cyber security focus because it's super important in the world that we live in. So you can find those opportunities in lots of places.
Thanks, Fola. Yeah, I to add to what you guys said, I think the softer skills, especially if you think about future leadership roles, are really important. And I think what gives women an advantage, we have the ability to bring emotional intelligence to strong technical skills as well, can really set you apart for future leadership positions. We do have a question from the group. So it's for both Kelly and Fola, but probably more specifically Kelly. And it is from a cybersecurity analyst. They've been a hiring manager and managed 2 teams, worked in public and private sectors, but have been sending out the resume for about 8 months without any interviews yet. And so she is unsure if it's her resume or the position she's applying to. So how do you know if your resume if it's the resume or if it's positions, she's applying to positions where potentially she's over or underqualified?
So the first thing that I will say is it depends to what type of company you are applying to. To Fola's earlier point, every company is a technology company to a certain degree. However, most resume screening comes through HR, which typically aren't very tech savvy. So for my personal resume, as well as my LinkedIn profile, I apply some of those softer skills and the emotional intelligence with more of a storytelling type of view of what are the outcomes and the achievements that I've had because of my technical background. Just like starting with listing off your technical capabilities or languages or projects or things like that is probably going to have a recruiter saying, I don't really know what this means. So having a compelling story to tell along with your pieces of the tech background and the pedigree, if you will, I think are important. I think it's also really key to have multiple people with different skill sets review your resume. And especially with matching up a resume to the qualifications, I would say 9 times out of 10, women look to check every single box to say, I'm qualified for this, rather than there's 5 items and I have 3 of the 5, but I'll learn the other 2. And having that sort of that leap in the net will appear type of point of view will help as well.
Fola, anything you would add?
No, I think Kelly nailed it. And Griselda in the chats saying, I've tweaked my resume 4 times. Finally, I'm getting some interviews. So I think that, like, Kelly's point, have someone take a look at it, adjust, broaden the scope of where you're applying to, so you're not limited, because it may be that too, because lots of these roles are super competitive. So it doesn't mean that you're not, maybe there's a reason and whatever, but it just means that may not be the right opportunity for you. It doesn't mean that there's nothing out there for you. So I do those things and keep trying.
Yeah, and I would add, use your network. The last 2 people I've hired have come to me through my extended network, not because it was a resume that showed up in a pool of resumes. And so, do you know anyone on LinkedIn that works for the company you're applying to? And do they have a connection to, bring your resume to the top? So don't be afraid to be an advocate for yourself and use your network to get an in. Lots of people do that. And so that is also a really great way to have opportunities, is to use your network. And if you don't have a big one yet, use sources like Fairy Godboss and LinkedIn and others to help you build that network. And it just takes a little bit of courage and risk, which goes back to the advice we gave a little bit earlier. So, all right, Kelly and Fola, we'll start with you on this one. Just given the rapid pace of technological advancement, which is changing all the time, how does Alight encourage continuous learning and skills development for our colleagues?
So we have a really vast supply source of like courses, training materials. We have what we call Alight Academy, and that allows you to go in and self-learn on a variety of topics. We have a tuition program that allows you to also do things outside of Alight that the company will pay for. They are just, and we have some instructor-led stuff too. So depending on what the topic is, we may offer, and the number of people who are interested, we may offer instructor-led training. We're actually doing one this afternoon. So we just, Alight is really supportive. Managers are really supportive of encourage people to take the training that's out there. And then if you need to do something that's above and beyond what we have, there's the opportunity to have it covered by Alight as well.
Kelly, what would you add?
I would add, because of my role, I also have some vendor management responsibilities. Oftentimes tech people can be very transactional with their vendor partners. And what I've learned, back to Allison and Fola's earlier points about softer skills and emotional intelligence, is people are people. They may interact differently, or they may have different communication styles, but I've tried to keep my vendor relationships really close with Microsoft or with IBM or with Amazon, because they're in that industry. And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of going deep and broad, they're going to have niche skills and opportunities. And because they want to be more than just a transactional vendor, they want to offer opportunity. And so really kind of leveraging that, I've gotten all sorts of free training and conversations with industry experts. And also by sort of the transitive property, by using that network, there's been times when I've said to my Microsoft guy, I'd love to know what one of your other customers is doing with XYZ technology. And he's more than happy to put that together. So I think of, you have your network of people you've worked with, people who you've worked ancillary, maybe teams or departments in, but be creative in how you build out your network with unexpected sources.
Thanks, Kelly. We do have another audience question, and it kind of goes with the next question I had. So we'll create a combo here. As you think about hiring people into roles for yourselves, what advice we talked a little bit about resume building and using your network, but what advice would you give people on how to best position themselves as strong candidates? Are there specific attributes or skills that you're looking for? And then to build in the audience question, do official certifications from industry or vendors rate the same as certifications from universities, LinkedIn, et cetera? So really, what do you guys look for? What are the skills? And then as you think about official certifications, how do you rate them between schools and some of the industry experts? Kelly, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. First and foremost, it will depend on the career stage that a person is at. So if they are early career, maybe a first or second time job changer, having some really good lessons learned from wherever they are currently or have departed is important. That leads to me to the critical thinking and the problem solving. If somebody is more in, say, mid-career, maybe 30 or 40 years of age, I'm looking more for sort of that problem solving and end user experience. So rather than just say, well, here's my favorite one, reboot, or it's a training issue. Like, why is somebody having an issue? Like, really digging into that end user experience. And then for somebody senior, I wouldn't expect somebody who's looking for a senior director or a VP role to have all the nits and gnats of a programming language or the latest cybersecurity scanning views. I'd expect them to have the acumen, but they need to be able to inspire that up and coming, series of career stages that I mentioned. So how does a senior leader relate to a first-time job changer? Or how is somebody who's sort of in the middle of their career going to be able to mentor and manage people? I very much believe in servant leadership. I'm not a big ego person. And again, I was super flattered when Fola mentioned that. I'm always thinking of, how do you put somebody in their best light? And how do you hire other people who are going to consider that as well? I think there's so much fear out there about job security and how do I make myself irreplaceable, when the reality is everybody's replaceable. So how do you create a fabric of skills, experience, inspiration, and leadership as you're looking to recruit across a variety of roles?
That's awesome, Kelly. Fola, what would you add?
Yeah, so Kelly nailed it. I'd say, just to look at it from a pure black and white perspective, we look at several competencies, right? So depending on what level you're coming in at, like, will determine, that will tell you whether or not you should be stage 1 versus stage 4, which is super proficient. So things such as adaptability, creativity, communication skills, in addition to your tech skills. And I'd say when you get to an interview, at least an Alight interview, your ability to describe what you did and the impact of that thing is super important. And so Kelly was speaking a little bit almost about root cause, right? So you need to know why. Root cause is very important, but you need to know why. You need to understand the impacts, like, what did you learn from it? Like, those are the ability to take an experience and be able to speak about it in a way that a lay person would understand is very important. And then just being able to connect your experiences. I think storytelling is like an underrated skill, but it's super important as you go into like an interview process.
Thanks, Fola. Kelly, as you think about hiring for, a very specific technical role in cloud infrastructure or engineering, do those official certifications, does it matter if they come from an industry or vendor versus a university? Like, how do you look at those things?
Honestly, I would prefer them to come from an industry, because often academic certifications are a bit dated. And I say this because my daughter is a recent college grad, and it's been very eye-opening for her. And like, wait, I was taught this in school, but I had this workshop and it was wildly different. And so I would encourage, especially for people who have non-traditional majors like myself, I don't feel like it's been a boat anchor ever that I was a creative writing major. But the fact that I have taken quality assurance certifications or cloud certifications within the industry that you can pick up on LinkedIn. My daughter Eleanor taught herself how to code a new language just through a website that she enrolled in for like $35. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in the industry that can meet you where you are, that doesn't require academics.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kelly.
I think breaking in, the one thing I'd add is, you can do an online certification because you're trying to get into tech. I think looking for opportunities to do either projects or internships or somewhere to get that practical experience is important, because it's really the practice of whatever language that brings it to life. And so theory is one thing, practice is another, and just, try to find ways to practice what you've learned, even if it's an internship.
Those are both great pieces of advice. Thank you both. I would add to what you said, and this gets back to something you said earlier, Kelly. The importance of being able to talk about what you know in a way with every kind of person is really critical. Some of the best technical experts I've worked with in our organization know how to talk to me as not being a technical expert. So I get what they're saying around AI and AI analytics and generative AI without being an expert. And so I think too, the more you can build your skills on being able to talk about what you do with all kinds of people is a really critical skill to have.
So well said.
So looking ahead, how do you envision the future landscape in the tech industry for women? And so what trends, changes do you anticipate, and how can women prepare for those shifts? Kelly, we'll start with you.
Sure. I have been a long tenured colleague of Alight, and before remote work was cool, I was so fortunate to have the flexibility that I needed for my family. I'm really into my animals, not just the horse, but other animals. And so I think given virtual work, flexible schedules, I think on that work-life balance piece, the biggest bit of advice that I would give this group of people is don't make excuses for your time. So many women that I've coached are like, well, I have to go pick up my child from school, or I have to get my dog from the vet, or men don't do that. I'm unavailable. Here's my availability. Like, you don't need to make excuses for why you require some flexibility. And, thankfully, if there's scraps of things that are good coming out of COVID, I think the flexibility with work is really key. I think as we look ahead to how technology is evolving, it is critical for women to get involved with machine learning and artificial intelligence to drive out bias. I'm just fascinated by some of it's a little dystopian of like, what do you do when robots lie? But if you have competing programs around sentiment, meaning somebody calls in and they're really concerned that they're talking to a computer, how do you ensure that the computer doesn't try to over empathize based on the algorithm, as opposed to allowing somebody to have a confident experience with that interface? And I really think about AI and machine learning as digital workers that need training, they need correction, they need data to keep them fresh. And I think every time I see a woman sort of opt out of that for whatever reason, it makes that bias more chilling to me, not to be, again, dystopian. So the last thing that I would say is, and I was thinking about this when Fola was speaking. There is a big difference between street smarts and book smart. So taking the test and answering a multiple question when it comes to what's happening in AI or what's happening in cloud computing or in engineering, like, that's not enough. You have to also be looking around the corner to say, what is that next big disruptive technology? Not to make anybody paranoid, but where my head is at right now is chats are great, but how do I start to anticipate what people are needing by how they are traversing a website or how they're using a mobile device? How do we get in front of people having to ask for where to go and start to anticipate where they need to be? So again, applying that, what you expect in your normal life, I expect Amazon knows what I'm shopping for. It's creepy, yes, think about it too much, but how does that apply in our industry when somebody is contemplating a leave of absence? How do we create less distance between stimulus of I need something to reaction of I confidently feel like I can do something? So hopefully that wasn't too abstract, but I just think there's a tremendous opportunity for women with virtual work, with diversity of thought, and really having that empathy for end user experiences.
Yeah, it's a great point of view, Kelly. Folio, what would you add?
No, I think Kelly's point about bias is an incredibly interesting one, right? Because just to say it, there's a lot of what's designed today is designed by men, as if that's the entire universe. And I don't think it's like intentionally biased, but AI is generally biased. And like, you have to think about like, what does that mean? And so I'm excited because I think with the awareness and the DEI, focus for a lot of clients and companies over the past several years, as well as like organizations like Fairy God Boss and others, I can see more women entering the tech space. And so that helps from a bias standpoint, that helps just to shape technology in a more balanced way for the future. So that's super interesting. I also think that because of that and the entry of more women into tech, organizations such as this, you see more mentorship, more advocacy for women. You're already seeing it in, STEM for women, STEM for girls, girls who code. Like there are lots of things being done to bring and help bring women in, bring girls into this field and help navigate through. So I think that's like really exciting and what I look forward and see as a trend for us going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Fola. And I would add to what you guys said. I think that it's really hard to predict what's coming from a technology perspective because it's evolving so quickly. And so your best asset is to be uncomfortable a lot. And I think about times where I know for both Kelly, Fola, and myself, the biggest career changes and like improvements have come at times where I got out of things I was really comfortable with and got into something I didn't know. And using the skill sets I built upon, but getting into something I was really uncomfortable with helped me grow much more quickly than trying to eke out some more improvement on things I was really great at. So I would encourage, it goes back to that risk taking, I think is going to be really important for women in tech as well. All right, so I know Fairy Godboss has a tradition of asking panelists the next question I'm going to ask you guys, and it's mostly because as women, we're not great about bragging or taking ownership for things that we do well. And so would love for each of you to share just something you're really proud of, one of your proudest accomplishments, personal or professional. So Phil, I'll start with you on this one.
So I have many.
You do, I agree with that.
So I would say just over the past few months, there have been a number of things that have made me like super proud. One in partnership with Allison and others, like we've helped stand up this customer success organization within Alight. And it's really pivotal to our growth as a company. And so being able to be a part of that, setting up our colleagues, working with our clients, retraining our people, that has felt like a really huge, uncomfortable because it felt different, but necessary, and we're able to work through that. So I feel really proud about that. And then the other thing, and this will resonate as well, we've been talking for many years about forming a council for our clients that we can use as a testing ground for new and exciting things so that they can also help shape our direction within the health space. And so in the past couple of weeks, we were actually able to launch that and have our first group of clients attend that. And that was under my leadership and direction. And so I really feel proud of, accomplishing something that had been on the docket for many years and got accomplished on my watch.
Congrats, Paula.
The many things. Thank you.
Kelly, how about you?
I even practiced and wrote some stuff down because I am not good at this. I think what I am very proud of the response to COVID. And I know that's a little dated, but as an infrastructure expert and dealing with problem solving, I'm almost always the only girl in the room. And so as we were thinking about COVID and thinking about security and sending a bunch of laptops, but mostly desktops, imagine that, like big dinosaur desktops and huge monitors home for people. There was no other way. And so there was a lot of critical thinking saying, well, Kelly, you're so confident about this. What if it doesn't work? I'm like, we don't really have a choice. So I would say I'm really good in a crisis. So whether it was COVID or when we've had some of our vendor partners have cyber issues, thinking through to that end user experience and how do I put an HR professional at ease when there's been a cyber event and that person has no idea what that actually means. people use different vocabulary that can be extremely inflammatory depending on what their their background is or their level of experience. And so really trying to bring calm and solution-oriented conversations to light, whether it's a system issue or a cyber event or things like that. And again, like those are pretty abstract, but I also love to see how some of my ideas get put out into the universe. So we have, several products within Alight that were drawings in my notebook, literally. So whether it's we're offering our application integration with Microsoft Teams to bring a little bit more work-life balance and bringing more of the employer-sponsored benefits programs into the flow of work, or having a community site for our clients, or imagining how we give investment advice. If you have $100, do you put it in a 401k plan, an HSA plan, or a 529 plan, depending on your circumstances. And then I would say the last thing, and I'm really proud that I've been able to inspire other women who felt like they couldn't enter into the tech world for a variety of when you say it out loud, kind of silly reasons. Mm-hmm. So not as concrete as Fola's, but I think really being a great problem solver and really good in a crisis are the things that I'm most proud of.
And knowing you both, I think something else for you both to be proud of is staying true to who you are in more of a male-dominated industry, and as you've both climbed your careers, because I think that says a lot about each of you and also our culture. And I would encourage everyone on the call to think about your proudest accomplishment. I recently was doing interviews for a VP level position, and I asked all the candidates what their most proud moment of their career is and what was something they wish they had done differently in their career, the hardest thing they've had to do. And of the men and women, the women, especially on the accomplishment, not so much the hard thing, the accomplishment, weren't as prepared to answer that question. And which is fine. Like, I want people to take some time and think about it, but I do think you never know when you're going to be asked that question. So make sure you really have a chance to self-reflect on the things that you're most proud of that you've done. All right, we did get another question from the audience. So Fola, we'll start with you on this one too. Did you find that you had to take courses on leadership before becoming a leader? How did you get tapped to become a leader?
So a little bit of courses, but some of it is on the job training almost. And I remember when I started at Alight, I started in one function. And like within months, I recognized that we had a new client win, we had an implementation going. And so I volunteered myself. And so that allowed me to do, like, I actually did both those things for many years, and I'd go back and forth and sometimes do both. But I think people see some of those traits and behaviors in you and will give you opportunities. And in some cases, you have to ask for those opportunities and take the initiative to lead. Are there training courses, in leadership? Like, absolutely. Is anyone ever 100% prepared to be a leader? No. Back to the point of guys will say, yes, they are, and women will find all the reasons why they're not. I think some of it is like just taking that leap of faith in yourself, because half the time people around you see the potential that you may not see in yourself. So I think having a good support system, because they will point out the things that you're good at, even when you don't see them. But you can do some training. Like, training is always helpful. It's good to get that, but I don't know that, to get promoted to a VP or SVP or whatever, like there's like a course. Alight does have some sponsored programs. And so like we do leading women executives, etc., that are helpful to navigate with things like, how do you negotiate? How do you do, how do you operate as a leader? But some of it you just have to, you're going to learn on the job, I think. I have.
So. Thanks, Fola. Kelly, what would you add?
Yeah, I wrote them down because I was afraid I was going to forget them. I have 3 things that are a bit contradictory of themselves, but it's an evolution, and I think it's very situational depending on the type of role that you're going for. So several years ago, we had a pretty quick vacancy in one of our application development groups. And there were 5 candidates for it, myself included, and I was sort of voluntold to throw my hat in the ring for interviewing. I had a lot of insecurity about that because this particular development group required much more infrastructure knowledge than I had. And all 5 of the people were on the same team. So I got the job, and I got to manage 4 people who thought they should have my job. So that kind of leads into I think it's always great to be really mindful of who's your mentor, who's your advocate versus who's your boss. So I would think that's part of strengthening your leadership skills. And sometimes that advice that Allison gave of be uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable in that role, and showing up to work every day knowing that all 4 of those guys thought that they were better than I was at doing the job. And then here's the part where it comes in that's a little contradictory. I love that essential leadership question of, is it better to be loved or feared? And I think the answer is yes. You have to be able to know when to draw upon empathy and building loyalty and putting people in a great spot. Dollars to donuts, I will try to give credit to somebody else because it helps them with their confidence to move forward and builds loyalty. But there are times when you got to put on your big person pants and instill a little bit of fear. And especially if you use that sparingly, it's like, whoa, if she lost her cool, this must be a big deal. So being very mindful of the tone and how working within a leadership role. And then last sort of, again, contradictory bit is fake it till you make it. That doesn't mean like just making stuff up or blowing smoke or anything like that. I'm the first person to admit I don't know something or ask a question. But if you give yourself the presence and the permission that I belong at this table, fake it till you make it. People will believe you. You might not believe you, but they'll believe you.
Yeah, I think both great advice from both of you. I think a couple, just to add on to the advocacy piece, knowing who will speak up for you when you're not in the room is really important. So who are those people that will do that for you? Because a lot of opportunities, you don't necessarily know they're there. People kind of figure out who they might want to be in that job even before it's posted. And so know who will speak on your behalf when you're not in the room. And the other quality I would add is emotional intelligence. I think that is really, really, really important for leadership, and actually something that can learn. A lot of traits are things that you're born with. Emotional intelligence is something you can build. And this is a really old book, but Emotional Intelligence 2.0, that like changed my career early on because I figured out I had a harder time self-managing my emotions. People could tell what I was thinking just by looking at my face, which isn't a bad thing. But it gave me a lot of just really practical tips on how to better be self-aware, manage myself, but also socially aware and manage the social cues that were going on. And I think as you want people to follow you as a leader, because that's really important, is who will follow you and who will stand up for you. That's one of the key things that you can really work on and actually grow skills on. All right, Fola and Kelly. Well, Kelly, we'll start with you on this one. We have a question about if you've ever faced any differentiation or difficulty and how did you deal with it?
I'm struggling a little bit with differentiation. Is that I'm going to take it as low-key discrimination versus like would I be if I were a man, would this be treated differently? This isn't great advice, and I'm learning to challenge it a little bit more, but I have often been faced with, I literally had a client tell me, "You're pretty, you must not be that smart." How do you recover from that? Like, hey, you think I'm pretty? Wait a minute. Like, and I got to sit with this person all day. And so kind of to Allison's point about emotional intelligence, in some cases, I just ignore it. And it is, unfortunately, it's still out there. Just, when they go low, I go high. But what I'm learning, and I would encourage all of you to think about this in a very intentional way, it's not even really just about me. It's about the person behind me and the person behind her and the person behind her. And so shifting that, what are some strategies when somebody says something like, I'm in technology, and you probably can't totally tell, my pink hair might give it away, I'm really girly. And so how do I initially set that expectation? No, I do know what I'm talking about. And I'm lucky that I work with a lot of people that have known me for a while, but when I'm faced with a new client or a new vendor or something like that, I try to start off with some of those accomplishments, as I mentioned in my introduction, about doing due diligence for mergers and acquisitions, or managing a development shop that produces $10 million worth of output. Or start with those facts to lay the groundwork to hopefully head off any of that sort of um, differentiation. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thanks, Kelly. Fola, how about you?
So yes, I have faced, differentiation, discrimination. Some of it is implicit bias, some of it is explicit. The microaggressions every day. Whether that's because I'm a woman or because I'm a person of color. There could be everything from maybe you don't belong, for either being a woman or being a person of color. Like, you're a diversity hire. And so my rebuttal to that is always to be the best that I can be and not worry about other people's perceptions, which is hard because you have to, like, you're faced with it. But I know I'm in the room on my own merits. And so I own that space. And like, worrying about somebody else's thoughts or whatever is a fool's errand. So I try not to feed into that. It doesn't make it any easier. But at least I come from a place of, like, I feel confident in what I know. I feel confident to ask a question when I don't know, and I will let my work speak for itself. And that's my motto. That's my mantra. That's how I operate. So will there always be weirdness? Absolutely. Do I have to take that on me? Absolutely not. So I don't.
Thanks, Fola. And I would, I would add, I think as women leaders, it's really important for us to do two things. One, speak up when we see things that aren't right, even if it's at a place of personal risk, because it's the right thing to do. And I think to look out for women, and particularly women of color around you. And that is completely based on people's merits. But to Fola's points, there are implicit biases that people don't even realize they have. And so I think as women leaders, we really have a lot of responsibility to each other to look out for each other and speak up when we see things too. All right. We are getting near to the end, and so we'll see if there's any other questions that come in the chat. But just kind of as we think about getting to wrap up, is there anything else you guys would want to share with this audience just about the tech industry, about skill sets, about looking out for yourself, personal development, anything we haven't covered that you'd love to give the group some advice on? Kelly, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I as you were last speaking, I was thinking about a workshop that I attended a couple of weeks ago, focusing more on LGBTQ stories, mental health, binary issues, and things like that. And I'm very interested in sort of the human condition. And what was unique about this workshop, and it ties into something that you said around empathy or biases that people don't know. I think in some cases, constantly asking the question, why, right? So why did that client contact say to me, oh, you're pretty, you must not be that smart. And instead of making it about me, it's more about that person just isn't a very good communicator or what have you. And I think for every obstacle that we face that seems like, oh, well, it's because of gender discrimination or because I'm in a male dominated industry, every man that I've worked with has a wife, a sister, a daughter, something. And so it's not our job to educate people who just don't want to be educated. But I think there's also some grace that is beneficial to us as women by extending that to what may seem like the opposition in more of a, how do we start to grind down that bias rather than slapping somebody in the face?
Thanks, Kelly. Follow.
I just, self-reflection, my career, I moved to this country 25-ish years ago. And I don't know that I understood all of the workings, from a career perspective, navigating careers. So I don't know. I think there was an opportunity for me to have been more intentional about building a network and building relationships. We've talked about it all through this. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things that can help advance your career. It can help you get a job. It can help you move up the ranks. And so and I think networking has a negative connotation to it. But it's not always, you don't always have to be on the receiving end. I had an advocate within my network who was like really, really senior, like ELT member, all of the things, right? Executive leadership team, so a C-suite member. And I couldn't figure out like what I brought to the table. And some of that was, I just brought myself, right? And there were things that she did outside of work. There were ways that we communicated and the things that we talked about that I was bringing value to her in some way that I had maybe dismissed or didn't think was valuable enough. And so as you think about building your network, recognize that you always have something of value to bring to the table, as small as it may be. Don't think about it as a taking relationship. There's a little bit of give and take. And if you are intentional about creating those networks and investing in those relationships, you'll reap the rewards from it. So that's, looking back, that's in addition to courage and all of the things, I think that's one of the things. The other thing I would add is, maybe I'll end with it, Brene Brown has the saying, you can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you can't have both at the same time. And so think about you have to go through the pain, the fear, have some courage, and then comfort comes at the end.
Thanks, Fola. And I know she answered the question that was just posed around networking. And I would add to what Fola said, I've reframed networking as learning, a way to learn. And I do that because I am by nature a shy person, which is not normal in this type of job, but I am. And so I try to think about what can I learn from someone and what can they learn from me. And that way it's less about power, position, experience, anything else. We all have things to give and teach each other. And so I really encourage people to think about networking as a way to learn, because I think it helps reframe a little bit too about how you use your network and how you build your network, et cetera. So with that, Kelly, Fola, thank you guys so much for joining us today and for sharing such fantastic advice with this group. And thanks to all of you for turning up, for your comments and questions in the chat. We really, really appreciate it. And as a reminder, we'll send out a recording of today's event along with resources to learn more about opportunities at our organization, Alight Solutions. And in the meantime, be sure to check out Alight Solutions profile and jobs on Fairy God Boss. So we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve for future events. And so if you head to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen, you'll be able to share your thoughts in a 1-minute survey as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. We'll see you next time.